just waiting for the intro music to stop. I know I cut myself off in the last video. No idea if that's going to have worked or not. Hopefully that looks good, although the fact that I've had to wait for it probably doesn't look that good. But hello, welcome back to the Brighton Music Club, offshoot of the Brighton Film Club, available on Instagram and online. We're still on underrated albums. This is episode 3. And we are talking about another major artist, like I said in the Tunnel of Love video, sticking to the theme of talking about big artists and underrated albums from their catalogue. Once again, we're not talking about anything that deserves to be ranked as the best necessarily, or something that is really, really horrible. And actually, we're just trying to be awkward, just trying to pick out an album that maybe not that many people talk about, or deserves to be reappraised, or just doesn't get thought about in the same breath as some others, and sometimes is better, sometimes worse. Like we said and alluded to in the Tunnel of Love, it can be really daunting for people if you want to get into a certain artist to listen just to their greatest hits or just to what the consensus is the best album, because quite a lot of the time that's not the case, or sometimes it's really difficult to get into. Sometimes the best album might be something that is, because it was revolutionary, like we mentioned in the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper, very obviously culturally important, a huge milestone. But if you've never listened to the Beatles before, somehow, and you start with that, I don't think personally, and I think a lot of people agree, it's not the best place to start. Likewise with Springsteen, there are some artists whose bigger hits are very, very ubiquitous, played quite a lot, very, very recognised and well known. And with Springsteen, consensus would say that you should go straight to Born to Run or Born in the USA to sort of start your listening experience with him as an artist. Once again, I don't necessarily think that's the way to go, especially if you listen to those songs and go, well, I've heard this a million times, I don't want to hear this, what is this guy all about? I don't necessarily think they're the places to start. So hopefully this is just a bit of an idea of a different way, an alternative route. And as we've said, it's here to inspire debate, it's here for comment, and just interested to hear people's listening experience, nothing else. If you think that we are wrong or right, and then it's fantastic. If you want to comment, great, keep your thoughts. Or if you just want to watch and go, well, I agree, I disagree, whatever. Hopefully you might think, oh, I've not heard that in a while, or I've never even heard of that before, or actually you're wrong, here's a great idea instead, or it's just about sharing music, and just sort of sharing that passion, and hopefully gives people a chance to go and listen to something, especially in these difficult times. We have, thankfully, some people have got a little bit of time, and it's nice to sort of share that and experience something new, or listen to music or something that you've wanted to hear before, or get into an artist that you've never been able to get into before, and hopefully this series and other things will give you a chance to do that. And likewise on the Instagram, we're recommending fun, light-hearted films and TV shows with really good soundtracks, really easy watches, something with a bit of an inspiring message to help you and your family, and hopefully you are enjoying those as well. Have a little look, go and watch something, suggest stuff to me. That's absolutely why we're here, to share this experience and share the music. So again, we're talking major artists here on episode 3, and we're talking Bob Dylan, notoriously an artist where it is very difficult to get into because of the wealth of material there is to listen to. It's easy to be put off by the amount of work that he's created, such a prolific artist, such a well-known artist, lots of really distinct phases throughout his career as well, and it can be difficult. There's not necessarily a right way or wrong way into the catalogue. We're going to be talking today about Slow Train Coming, which we feel at the Brighton Music Club is an underrated album. To be honest, Dylan, like a lot of other artists, has probably quite a few underrated albums, probably a few overrated albums, and certainly a lot of sort of middling stuff in between as well. it was a little bit of a push and pull here in terms of what to rate as the first underrated album, and we will probably be revisiting Dylan once we sort of do a series 2 and all of that sort of stuff and go back to these artists. Dylan is certainly someone that we'll come back to because we spoke about having Oh Mercy as an underrated album. Also thought about putting Nashville Skyline as an underrated album as well. But what we decided to do is go with the most contentious pick that we came up with, which was Slow Train Coming, released in 1979, and this is the first album of Dylan's religious awakening. This is his first, quote, Christian album that he made, and he did a little series of these at this sort of period of time before sort of going away and then coming back with Oh Mercy, and that's why we felt that this was a good place to start, because it's a period that some people will write off because of the subject matter. Some people may not have listened to it. It doesn't really get a huge amount of attention. It's been highlighted in some of the bootleg series, which we're going to talk about, but this is an absolutely fantastic piece of work, and whether you like or agree or are interested in the themes or not, for us it's absolutely irrelevant. It's a really honed, really precise, very good listening experience, and that's the key with this. We want listening experiences. If you are stuck at home, if you are wanting to play something to a family member, if you're wanting to listen to something, whilst we have got time to listen to more experimental stuff and get into difficult stuff, I think at this time we want a pure listening experience, something which is fun, something that you can hear, again alluding to the Beatles and Beatles for Sale, as a listening experience. It's easy, it's accessible in comparison to something like a Sgt. Pepper's, which can be daunting. Slow Train Coming absolutely is an accessible, a clean, really easy listening experience, and it's vastly, vastly underrated. It's probably because it came out absolutely in the wrong time. At 79, we're talking the end of the punk era. We're talking just before we get into the 80s and synths, and Dylan comes out with a Christian rock album, really bluesy, really soulful, absolutely the wrong time in a lot of people's eyes to be releasing this material. Didn't do very well commercially. Critics did praise it. They said it was one of probably his best work since Blood on the Tracks a few years before, but certainly wasn't, this is seen of as a fallow period for the man. It's fantastic. Now, obviously, what happened is he was burnt out in long tours. He was in a difficult patch, a difficult period, and critically, he was being put down, and that not really happened to a great extent before. The story goes that he found a cross that was thrown to him on stage, and he had some sort of spiritual awakening in a hotel room where he sort of felt the presence of a spiritual figure, and that cleaned him up, gave him a bit of inspiration, and that's why he began this series of religious albums. That's sort of how the story goes, and this is the first one of those. As I said, as a listening experience, it feels really, really strong. He feels completely reinvigorated. It's warm. There's a real clarity of vision here. A lot of people say that Dylan is difficult because of what he is vocally. I always feel people say people are difficult to get into because of the way their voice sounds. You have to give that time. I hate saying that. It's a horrible thing to say. An album will grow on you, or a voice will grow on you. I know people want that accessibility, but certainly if you hear a voice over again, you'll get used to it. Here, he's really clear, really clean vocals. There's a clarity of the message as well, and I think that's because he wanted to get that religious point of view across. But either way, it sounds really, really lovely. And actually, the views, yes, they are all religious songs in a sense. The themes are there, but actually you could apply them to love. I don't really feel there's a huge, it's certainly not a turn off, I don't think, for anyone who is not interested in hearing about that. I think the musicality takes precedence over those vocals. And what he did is he brought in Jerry Wexler, who was known for the muscle shoals sound, the gospel, the soul sound, and he brought in Mark Knopfler after hearing Sultans of Swing and seeing Dire Straits live as well, and that has given this album a really bluesy, an absolutely reinvigorated gospel, soul, funk, blues sound. Listen to Slow Train, listen to When You're Gonna Wake Up. It's so warm, it's so lively, it's toe-tapping blues rock. It's fantastic. As I said, with the religious themes, you could take a lot of them into love. There's a few mentions of God, but I think you could listen to it as a love record. You have that the pickaxe on the cover, which is shaped like a cross, that alludes to the themes. But as I've said, I think whether the themes are of interest to you or not, I think leave that by the wayside. It should not be derided for being a Christian-themed album. Absolutely not. Listen to the musicality of this thing. The gospel elements, the soul elements are so easy to listen to. To prove how reinvigorated he was, they've recently released, as part of his bootleg series, a live album called Trouble No More, which features songs from this time, 79 to 81. Unbelievable. Sort of stretches these songs to 6-7 minute blues jams. They absolutely do not feel like lengthy compositions. They feel like chugging, moving, trains, like he alludes to on the cover. Really listenable, high musicality. We think it's vastly underrated. Go and have a listen to it. Go and tap your toes to something that is really accessible and should be thought of a lot more. Thanks for listening. That's our view on Bob Dylan's Slow Train Coming. Again, let us know if we're wrong. Dylan has lots of underrated albums. We will talk about Oh Mercy once we sort of get to a series 2 and revisit some of these artists. And certainly I would say that Nashville Skyline, as I said, sits there as well. Any other underrated Dylan albums, please let me know. Do you like Slow Train Coming? Do you not? Go and have a listen to it. Go and spread the music and go and discover something new. We're going to follow this up. I know I said we'll keep on the big album, big artist theme, but actually I'm going to throw a curveball in there, throw a little underrated thing that we'll do tomorrow. So check back to see that. And in the meantime, stay safe, and I'll speak to everyone soon. Goodbye.